Over half a year ago, I made a video about the HP T740 thin client. It had surprisingly good hardware, and at one point I mentioned that it could make for a good Minecraft server machine, saying if anyone was interested, they should say so in my Discord server. Ultimately, no one was interested. However, around a month ago, that changed when one of my roommates expressed interest in playing Minecraft again, and after a couple of other people in the house agreed, I went about setting one up. I ran into some issues during the setup. Since this was going to be a LAN server, people using the same IP address needed to be able to connect simultaneously, but I kept running into issues where it would only allow one of us on at a time to begin with. Searching for the problem online didn't reveal anything since everyone was asking about LAN servers from the perspective of someone playing a single player world and clicking the Open to LAN option in the menu. This was not what I wanted. Since I go to work and stuff, I wanted people to be able to connect to the server without me having to have my own client open all the time. Finally, I tracked it down. A single option in the server configuration called Online Mode, which I set to false. That solved the problem, and multiple people in the same home were able to connect to the server simultaneously. I thought that was the solution to all our problems, and that my server was now a private LAN server, but I was wrong. The server was technically still public due to some previous port forwarding, meaning anyone who found our IP address somehow could join. I figured this may be a remote possibility, so as a precaution, I initiated a whitelist to our server, and all was well. We played on the server for a few days, making steady progress. On around the fourth day, I saw the console for the server say something interesting. Server Seeker V2 has joined the server. It was immediately unable to join due to not being whitelisted. It definitely caught my eye, but it seemed like the whitelist was doing its job. Besides, one of my roommates was currently in the server, and I didn't really want to tell her to get off so I could lock the server down more. Later that night, I was watching Red vs. Blue with my Discord server when I looked over and saw something a lot more alarming. Phino the Fox has joined the server, followed by a bunch of commands. Naturally, I immediately shut down the server and checked to see if I had any emails about someone infiltrating my Microsoft account, and I didn't. Indeed, it seemed my account had not been hacked. I booted the server back up, logged in, and this is what I found. Towers of magma, wither projectiles firing in random directions, everything destroyed. Along with a message saying who griefed the server and a message to buy the game next time. This struck me as quite odd. Why were we being accused of pirating the game? We're all owners of legal copies. More importantly, how did someone log in with my username? Well, the griefers left a URL for their Discord server, so I joined. What follows is a conversation I had with one of the griefers in the server. This won't make for the most interesting visuals, I apologize for that, but everything from here on is in the form of screenshots. Also, I'm not going to say the name of the griefer group or the users. I am aware of the Streisand effect after all, and they have an online presence in the form of a YouTube channel detailing their antics. By giving their names, I'd be feeding into their desire for notoriety. In the place of a name, I'll be calling the person I spoke to something catchy and easy to say. Let's go with Ultra Crepidarian, or Ultra for short. Okay, fine, it's a weird name, but give me a chance. I'll tell you what it means before the video is over. Don't look it up.
Welcome, Phino the Fox. How can I help you?
Not much. My server was griefed by y'all, but I'm mostly confused. The message was reprimanding us saying to buy the game next time, but we all bought it, so mostly I'm just wondering what the reason was.
Can you send a screenshot?
I obliged, to which she said,
Okay, so you were running a Minecraft server with online mode false and server properties?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a LAN server for me and my housemates, but clearly external people were able to join after all.
Yeah, so unfortunately, since you were running the server publicly, it was in violation of the EULA.
Let me jump in here and say right off the bat that Ultra is stupid. But more importantly, Ultra is wrong. We'll get to the why later on though. For now, let's get back to the conversation. Ultra posts a section of the EULA with a highlighted section which states that access to your server must only be granted to users who have a genuine paid-for version of Minecraft. I retorted, "But we're all paid users."
Turning off authentication allows a non-genuine client to be able to join your server. This only applies if the server is public, which your server evidently was.
So, still, the server was griefed because you just guessed we were doing something illegitimately. You just search for any servers that have that option turned off?
This is a type of server that we search for, but we mainly handle bigoted and hateful servers.
Everyone in our server's gay!
I'm gay as well.
I didn't have any backups, but it's not a huge deal since we only played on it a few days. Still, seems like y'all overreached pretty badly here.
It's all about sending a message. If you just come in and place a sign or something, they're just gonna keep doing it.
Was the message that people will make assumptions about you and fuck with your stuff for no real reason?
Your server was violating the EULA. Please properly set up your server next time.
Was my violation the thing you highlighted?
Yes, your public server had no authentication.
Nobody who was playing wasn't a genuine user, and my server had whitelisting turned on after I saw Server Seeker V2 probing, so nobody should have been able to join. Except, you guys when you did this.
Since there was no authentication, whitelisting might as well have not been on.
I turned that option off because I thought that was what made my server LAN, which seemed to be correct as indicated by we were able to join simultaneously once I turned that off.
You can log in as any username, meaning you can just set your username as one on the whitelist.
So there's the explanation for how my server was infiltrated. Since online mode was turned off, my server didn't interface with Microsoft or Mojang servers to make certain that a username being used was an official Microsoft account. This means that they were able to just set their username to my username, which also granted them op since I was an op on the server. So my account wasn't hacked, despite them gaining access to the server by spoofing my username. We continued arguing for a while about whether or not I was in violation of the EULA. I argue that if turning that option off was inherently a violation of the EULA, it wouldn't be an option in the server config. She says,
No. Because like I stated earlier, it has legitimate use cases. You just misused it. If you had taken a moment to critically think instead of blindly defending your actions, we wouldn't be having this argument.
My actions being setting up a server for me and my housemates to play on, but accidentally having it public unknowingly? Real criminal behavior on my part.
Again, as a server owner, you have the responsibility to make sure your server is in good standing. If you aren't competent enough to handle that responsibility, then maybe you shouldn't be running a server.
Doesn't it seem like a better way of going about this sort of thing would be, popping into offending servers and saying, hey, in case you don't know, your server is public when you have an option intended for LAN uses disabled. Here's how to solve the issue. Instead of griefing.
Again, as I said earlier, that doesn't work. We have tried in the past and we would get banned and the server would continue their actions. This alternative method is a lot more effective at getting people to do the right thing.
Oh, darn. Sucks that they banned you. Maybe they thought you'd do something nefarious, like griefing their server.
See how you're intentionally dodging my points? You clearly are too unintelligent to continue this conversation, as you can barely manage to understand what I'm saying.
At this point, you might think this is going nowhere, but I urge you to stick with me. This is about to get amazing. I understand what you're saying. I just think you're coming up with nonsense reasons that what you're doing is justified when you're pretty obviously overreaching. Better to have innocent people caught in the crossfire than to let bad actors get away, huh?
How many times do you want me to repeat myself?
I'm sure the people who are actually the ones you want to be affected were convinced that what they're doing is wrong. After all, people doing illegitimate and illegal activities are notoriously easy to convince to stop doing them. Anti-piracy law has been notoriously effective for the music and games industries after all. Here it comes!
So you're a bigot sympathizer. You think it's okay to build giant swastikas and Nazi flags.
Oh, geez. Where did all these straw men come from? Oh, man, they're all over the table. Ugh.
Let me give you some facts. We have visited over 200,000 servers, and in over 45% of cases resulted in a satisfactory outcome. I personally have been part of voice chats where we convince people to change their ways. If your point of view is so tainted to the point where you can't understand that people have the capability to change, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to do for you.
Alright, first of all, I am entirely unconvinced that they've visited over 200,000 servers. Still, even if we grant them that, 45% of cases resulted in a satisfactory outcome? I'm not sure that's a good ratio to begin with, but besides that, how exactly can that be verified? If you grief a server and the server operator solves their vulnerabilities, assuming they're the people these griefers are actually targeting, you wouldn't know that they changed anything because they can't be interacted with anymore. They might still be Nazis or pirates or whatever. Also, another person joined at this point, coincidentally someone who was a pirate. I'll call him Blackbeard. He'll prove to be a good hype man later on. I called Ultra out on the straw man with her saying,
Easy Dodge, just admit you think it's okay for bigotry to run rampant online. What if one of your friends was targeted by the things you support?
Oh, more strawmen. Get out of here, you little rascals. I went back to the EULA she brought up. It doesn't say the EULA is violated if someone potentially joins with an unpaid version. It says that access should be granted to users who do. Nobody who was an unpaid user accessed it, so no violation happened. Unless you're saying you joined with an unpaid client, which makes you the person doing the violation.
No, actually your server was joined by a script.
By saying this, she was unknowingly about to walk herself into revealing a massive amount of hypocrisy. So you're admitting that my logic is sound, making me not a violator because the violator was the script user? Cool, glad you agree that I did nothing wrong.
No, dumbass, the script joining your server is proof you violated the EULA, since a user without a genuine paid-for version of Minecraft joined your unauthenticated public server.
And there it is. So you, or rather the script clearly operated by all of you, is using an illegal version. And you're saying I'm the one who did something wrong? And I'm doing mental gymnastics? After all that moral grandstanding about fighting against piracy, they were the pirates all along. Absolutely incredible. I argued that the EULA stating that access to your server must only be granted to users who have a genuine paid-for version of Minecraft was written for them, not me. They're using the illegal copy.
Since you are clearly probing for any possible flaw in my wording, allow me to rephrase. You allowed a user to join your server without authentication.
Which was them, with an illegal copy.
The user in question is a headless Minecraft client logging into your server as a previously logged in user, a user that is on your whitelist, with no authentication. This is the violation in question, as you went out of your way to allow this situation to happen, attempting to twist the server usage guidelines to somehow incriminate us.
The people using an illegal copy of the game.
Is insane, Phino the Fox.
And that's where our interaction ended. Clearly, we never came to an agreement regarding that bit of the EULA, but it was eating at me a bit. I mean, clearly the griefers were in the wrong for using an illegal client and morally grandstanding about piracy, but still, was I in violation? We had two different interpretations of what Mojang and Microsoft actually intended with that line in the EULA. So, I decided to find out. If anyone knows the answer, it's them, so I wrote to them. Was this going to be a self-report? Let's find out. I was hosting a dedicated Minecraft server intended to be a private LAN server. As such, I had online mode turned off so multiple people on the same connection could join the server. Unbeknownst to me, the server was actually public. Griefers joined the server, spoofed my username to get up, and destroyed the server. I don't care about that. However, they claimed they targeted me because I was in violation of the EULA, pointing to a section which states that user with an illegitimate copy should not be permitted to join the server. Everyone who was a user on our server had a legal copy, and my server used a whitelist which should have made it so that only us were the ones who could join. However, the griefers were the ones using an illegitimate copy to join servers such as mine. My question is, was I in violation of the EULA as the server owner who misconfigured their server, or was that part of the EULA meant to apply to the people using the illegitimate copy, i.e. the griefers? I'll stress again, all of the users who were supposed to have access to the servers do own a legitimate copy of the game and were utilizing their purchased copy, except for the griefers. They responded informing me that my question was being escalated to a specialist, adding that if I had any additional information, I could add it as a reply to that email. I just passed along the name of the griefing crew and their YouTube channel. Eventually I got a canned response that was just links to their terms of service and EULA, basically saying any question I had could be found there. I replied, I am familiar with the guidelines. However, the griefers' claim was that I was in violation of the guidelines because the server was set up in such a way that someone with an illegitimate copy of the game could have joined the server, unbeknownst to me. I was using a whitelist so only me and my housemates, all of whom are legal purchasers of the game, theoretically could join. However, the griefer used an illegal copy and was able to gain access by spoofing my username. Their claim was that I violated the EULA, but I think the rule they were referencing actually points to them violating the EULA as the owner of an illegal copy of the game. With this, my ticket was escalated yet again to Mojang's enforcers, who wrote,
Greetings. This ticket has found its way to the Mojang enforcement team to review. Offline mode was designed primarily as a way to test a server. It is not intended to be enabled on production/public servers. The goal would be to always have legitimate clients which are authorized connecting to a server. It sounds like the griefers were in the wrong and should not be messing with your server. Thanks.
Now, a lesser man would declare victory here. Like, aha, they said it! The griefers were wrong! But I was unconvinced they understood the full scope of the issue. I mean, did they understand that my server was technically open, even though that wasn't my intention? I had to be certain, even if it meant implicating myself and being forced to admit wrongdoing. Thank you for the clarification. For transparency, the server was, mistakenly and unbeknownst by me, public in the sense that someone with my IP address could attempt to connect. I had a whitelist in place just in case, in an attempt to prevent that from happening, but since the griefers spoofed my username, they were able to join. Would you still say the griefers were the ones at fault in this scenario? I waited nearly a week, but finally I received a response.
This was my original response. Offline mode was designed primarily as a way to test a server. It is not intended to be
okay, I read
enabled
it. Just go to the next line.
Closing the ticket, as I think we have answered you. Thanks.
So, there we have it. They saw what I said and still said it was the griefers, and only the griefers, who were in the wrong. Not only that, but their response was so certain in its judgment that they were closing the ticket, thus bringing an end to any question of my wrongdoing. Now, to be clear, I actually didn't care that much about the server being griefed on its own. We had only played on it for a few days at that point, and frankly, I thought the world we had was kind of annoying to navigate. Lots of steep cliffs, wasn't my thing. What bothered me was the ridiculous moral grandstanding on the part of Ultra and the crew she represented. Oh, and that reminds me, what does ultra-crepidarian mean? Well, from the Cambridge Dictionary, ultra-crepidarian, noun, someone who has no special knowledge of a subject, but who expresses an opinion about it. Thanks for watching. This was a bit of a side quest from the usual tech videos I do, but I thought it would make for a good video. Would you believe me if I said this wasn't even the worst drama that occurred from the Thin Client video? I might have to tell that story soon. It would mean a lot if you'd check out my more recent videos. Also, like and subscribe. Thank you to the several people who helped voice lines for this. First up, Arya, who had the dubious honor of voicing Ultra. Illusory Wall, who played the Mojang Enforcer, and finally, PeteyPiranha, who played Blackbeard. Oh, and Shivers the Cat for helping out with some art assets. You can find links to their channels in the description.